Today's episode does discuss topic of mental health. Lifeline can be contacted on 131114 for 24/7 crisis support. If your life is in danger, dial 000. Well, welcome to the Baby Playbook podcast. It's so great to be with you again. Thank you for checking in with, of course, your very, very busy schedules at the moment. I am sure today is a guest episode, which I'm really, really excited about and excited to bring to you because I think this is a topic that we should only be talking more and more about. And I think we should be more open and honest about our own experiences here. And it is really about postnatal mental health. I think this is something that I definitely struggled with myself after I had Noah, my first. I think postnatal blues really kind of hit me like a bit of a bus when it happened to me. I am usually a super bubbly and energetic and, just switched on person. I never really struggled with any other mental health prior to having kids. So it was a real shock to me when all of a sudden I had this newborn at home and everybody was telling me how exciting this period of my life was. And I did not feel the emotion of excitement in any capacity. I was confused. I was sad. I was anxious. I was worried. It was all, I think, a influx of negative emotions over any positive emotions at the time. And for me, luckily, it was an experience that I was able to seek help for. I relied on the Panda service, which is a really important service here in Australia that provides free phone call and support for anybody going through any sort of postnatal mental health. And then also professional help as well. And I even did it when I was pregnant with my second as a bit of a preemptive approach. So I cannot talk any more highly about seeking help during that postnatal period, which is really challenging. And that's why I want to bring in our guest today, Miriam Boulos. She's a psychologist. She has been for 15 years, so she is in the thick of this space. She knows it, and she has having struggled herself, which is, thank you so much for sharing that, depression and anxiety. She also has two boys. She's in the boys club with me, so she understands the chaos of having two boys. Big Boys to Men fan as well. So thank you so much for following me.
No problem. Well, thanks for having me today.
Amazing. Well, I want to kick off today, Miram, I guess, if you don't mind, maybe perhaps sharing a little bit of your own story and your experience with this in this space, perhaps outside of your professional capacity.
Look, everything you just said, resonates with me so deeply. And it was, you have this child and you think it's going to be amazing when you come home, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I've just lost all my happiness. There was no joy. I was constantly crying, and I'm talking all hours of the day, the night. You're mentally, you're physically exhausted. So I just found myself in this place that I didn't expect to be. And I think because you're just not mentally prepared for that, you're just really left going, well, have I done the right thing? Was this the right choice for me? So it took me a really long time, but with a lot of support from family, from friends, professional support, like you said, Nicolina, I was really, really determined to really face this head on. I think for me as well, one of the biggest things is I realized, I'd pick up my son and he actually would stop smiling at me because I thought, my gosh, it's actually really starting to affect him. And that was my really big wake-up call.
Wow, that's so huge. Thank you for sharing that, and I can resonate with that so deeply. It's one of those things as well, is when you haven't experienced it before, you kind of don't really know whether it's at that stage of seeking external help. So we'll talk about that, of course, in today's episode. But I want to kick off with what really surprised me in this space is that it's so common. It's so common to feel these feelings at the start, and of course, for some people, they feel it on a higher level. They need that external help. But for some parents, mums or dads, it's just really common emotions to feel at this time, and you're not really told that. So can you talk us through some of the common things that I guess mums can expect to feel during that postnatal period?
Look, I think one of the things that I would say was really big for me as well was, and in general, I think that isolation was something I didn't anticipate, because you're feeding at all hours in the night alone. You go out to events, you're feeding alone. And so when you're in the thick of it, you think, my gosh, like, is this it? Like, am I going to be disconnected from people forever? Sorry. And it's obviously not like that at all. But I think isolation's a really big one. Another one is just be prepared with constant comparison. So you might always be going, oh my gosh, my life was so much easier before I had a baby. Just to walk out the door, it was my keys, my wallet, and that's it. To go on holidays, or to go to the beach, it was just a beach towel and, your swimmers and you're off. So you're always constantly, I think, comparing your life, what it was like before and what it is like now. And I think the last one as well, for me, or the one that really hit me as well, was the mental load. You don't realize you are constantly switched on. It's not, I guess, like work where it's 9 to 5, you come home, put the TV on and that's it. You're constantly thinking, okay, have I done the laundry? Have I got the, sterilizing done? The house, the food prep. There's so much of the mental load that I guess you don't anticipate that you'll be carrying once you become a mum.
Yeah, that could be absolutely exhausting, not just physically, but also mentally as well.
Yeah.
So for me, I guess when I realized that I kind of needed, I lent on my sister a lot. She had kids herself, so she knew the experience well. I talked to my mum. So I wasn't one of those people, I don't know about you, but I wasn't afraid to lean on the people around me.
Yes.
But I did at some point start to realize that as great of advice they were giving me, it wasn't quite working. I was still stuck in this cycle of, I remember I used to wake up in the morning and say, all right, I'm not allowed to cry today. This is going to be a great day. That positive thinking, doesn't matter how hard it is. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to feel great. I'm going to go outside for some fresh air. And then by the end of the day, still in the same state. And it was like this consistent cycle. And that's when I was like, okay, something's like pretty wrong here. And as much as I can, bang it into my head in the mornings that I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to be upset, I am doing that. So that was the flag for me that I needed to take a step and seek some external help. So what are some flags that perhaps, mums can say, okay, I need a little bit more help with this. I need to ask for help from a professional?
Yep. So one of the biggest things I'll tell you to look out for is, which we just mentioned briefly, was if you're finding that you're waking up and there is absolutely no joy in your life, that is a big one. And Nicolina, as we were saying, I've been following you for some time, and I remember something you posted, and I actually remember tearing up watching that, because I go, my gosh, this is me. You had said that you used to love your birthdays and celebrating your birthday, and you said for the first time, you said, I just didn't care to celebrate my birthday. And I thought, my gosh, for me, it wasn't a birthday week, it was a birthday month. It was just, a whole heap of events. And now my family were just saying, let's do a cake, let's do this. And I just couldn't care less. So there was nothing. If you're finding that nothing is bringing you joy that once used to bring you joy, I would say that is also a red flag. Another one would be, what's your eating habits? If you are, after I gave birth, I actually put on 20 kilos after I gave birth. I was just, my eating habits, I just stopped caring. So for others, it might be overeating, undereating. Your eating habits are also generally a good indicator of your mental health. Another one is, if you are starting to feel that you are resenting your baby, resenting, what they have, maybe the changes that they've brought into your life, I would say these are some really big red flags to stop and think, okay, maybe this is, a little bit more than just feeling blue, but maybe it is something that I really need to address or take a little bit more seriously.
Those are really good. I think it's really important to have these practical things that you can look out for and say, okay, is this like a bit of a checklist even? Because you're so confused, like I myself, I'm not a professional. So I was like, is this just normal? Is this just going to go away? That's what I'm not going to make a fuss out of this. It's not that serious, but it's a good way to look at it in terms of like asking yourself those proper questions. Absolutely. And so tell me then, a lot of people who are listening may be pregnant and just expecting their first baby. So this is just something that they're perhaps looking into and preempting. Is there anything that you can do ahead of time to help in terms of getting yourself in the right headspace?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think now when you go through it, now you can look back and go, okay, well, now I can prepare, but it's always good to lean on, I guess the growth or experiences from others. I think one of the biggest things is just expect you are about to hit a really hard period in your life. It is going to be difficult. You are going to be mentally and physically exhausted, but just once again, when you are in the thick of it, you really do think that this is it for the rest of my life. I'm always going to be in this difficult stage. But kids grow up, they do become independent. So it really does get easier. Please don't think that where you are in that moment is going to be, that's it. Also, motherhood isn't going to look like what it looks like in the movies where, you hold your baby, sway them, put them down to bed. It doesn't work like that. So just expect it's not like what Hollywood is, maybe showing us of what motherhood should be like. And also adjust your expectations. I'm someone who was a control freak. It was, the house has to be a certain way. It has to look a certain way. When I had my first son, that went all out the window. And I really had to adjust my expectations and think, you know what, it's okay if one day the house, or for a week even, if the house is upside down, it's okay. But just adjust your expectations to that you are going to have a new normal, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's a really good message there. I think lowering your expectations, even like by the hour, like just realistically, the next hour will probably not go the way I think it's going to go.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and in here, I definitely wanted to tell our listeners as well, obviously when I experienced that postnatal blues with Noah, I was really terrified that it would come back with Leo. So I actually preemptively went to therapy for that. And that was a real game changer for me. It just gave me like a few tools. It let me talk about the fears that I had that were quite genuine. I was really scared. I thought, oh my gosh, it's just going to happen again. These feelings are just going to flood back in. It doesn't matter that I've, done the work to try and climb that mountain, and now I'm just going to end up right back at the bottom. So that was a really positive experience for me. I mean, I think that therapy is great for everybody, kids. So if you do want to have a listen to that, I will definitely link that in the show notes, called Come to Therapy with Me, that podcast. But upon what you were saying, what are some ways in which we, I guess, can rely on family and friends to help during this time? As I mentioned, I very much relied on my sister just being open and honest, and she was a great just listener in that period. But I think also important to note that your family and friends aren't necessarily qualified to help you get through that, the highest step. So what can we expect of them? What can we ask of them? And then when do we need to shift that expectation?
Look, I think you're right. You need to be absolutely brutally honest with them. And, for me, it was sometimes I was sugarcoating it, saying, oh, it'll be all right. It's not, it's just a bad day. So I don't even think they realize the severity of it till after. So I think, number one, be brutally honest with them. And like you said, they are not, they're not professionals. They have, I'm sure, your best interest at heart, but they just don't know how to be, maybe be that right support at that time that you need. So I think that you do need to be completely honest and transparent with your family and friends about how you're going. I think they are a terrific support system. But like I said, if you are seeing those red flags, I do think that you do need to reach out for that help beyond your family and friends. But I would still be doing it in conjunction with therapy and still talking to them at the same time, because I do think at the end of the day, we don't always, want answers. We just need to vent. So I think that's really important, is in make sure that you are venting to them. Another thing is also accept help with household chores. Accept that help. I remember one day coming home and just speaking to my sister and just crying because my house was an absolute mess. She said, I'm coming over. She came over, helped me, and it just cleared up my head so much. So also accept help from them when they, when they're offering, or if you're asking, don't be afraid to ask for that help. It makes such a huge difference just when you walk into a home and everything isn't as scattered. Accept help from them as well. And family, another big one for me was, it was on rotation where I was having meals being cooked, by family and friends. That made a huge difference. So accept all the help that you can from them. But like I said, still do it in conjunction with getting some professional help as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to try and get the logistics right, and try and like what you can, because the thing about the mental, your mental health is that's always going to be on, right? But it's then you've got that going on, and then on top of that, all of the day-to-day, everything's dirty, the baby needs to go to sleep, the baby needs to have a nap, I'm exhausted, my feet hurt, so if you can just take something off the pile, something off the pile, it's so helpful. And you were talking before about one of the feelings that really is quite surprising for mums is that isolation, that feeling of isolation. And I really clearly remember this was kind of like a huge moment for me postnatally with my friends, there was a day that I was just like unhinged. It was
Mm.
just, the day was going terribly. No sleep. I was exhausted. I was crying all day. My husband had just gone back to work. So then I was terrified because I was alone with the baby and I wasn't getting it. And it just wasn't like, it wasn't going the way I thought it was supposed to be. And I just didn't really know what to do. And so I just called a friend of mine, a
Mm.
beautiful friend that I have called Stigma. She, was a mum herself. And I just called her and I just like, was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, and she heard it. Like she
Mm.
just heard that panic and that sadness in me. And in 30 minutes, she had just knocked on my door and she was there.
That's
And it was
amazing.
like this
Yes.
huge weight off my shoulders. Like it's not like she was, she had the solution. She didn't come to the door with the solution,
Mm.
but she came just to be there.
Yes.
And having someone physically there was
Mm.
exactly what I needed in that moment. Just a change of like pace, like a bump in the day, something to change things up. And so I will like never forget that because it was
Yeah.
just purely having someone physically there to just be in it with me was such a game changer. So
Yeah.
there are ways in which, as you're saying, you can use your family and
Yes.
friends
Yes.
alongside that professional help to make sure
Absolutely.
that the next day,
Yes.
it doesn't keep happening. So
I think a support system, when you've got a really great support system and you've got the professional help, they really do complement each other really, really well. So I huge advocate of that, of getting professional help, but also making sure that you have a really great support network behind you as well. Super important.
well, on that topic then, how can partners help? Because I know this was a big um, a big thing for Nick, my husband.
Yeah.
He felt a little bit hopeless. He was like, I know, he even says now, I knew that you weren't yourself. I
Yes.
knew that something was off. I really, I think for partners as well, they try and be there physically. They're like, give me the baby, I'll do this and I'll
Yes.
clean. And so they're in this panic of trying to help you.
Yes.
So how can they help? Because it can be really confusing for them and
Yep.
how they approach it.
Look, I think is just allowing you to vent when you need to. And once again, for me, it was sometimes I was just talking and everyone's like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And it's, especially with Sam, with my husband, it was just, I just need you to listen and just let me get it off my chest.
Yeah.
Let me cry, let me scream, do what it is I need, but just
Yeah.
let me be in that moment, whatever it is I need to get out, just let me get it out. So, you're right. I think that they are so confused, but I think one of the things is that not to just always go into problem solve mode, but just listen and let your partner vent with what they're going through. Another thing is also, yes, you delegate tasks to them. It does help with that mental load, because of one of the things that was really stressing me out was all these things that I had to do, and every morning I would get up, that list wasn't getting any shorter, it just kept getting longer and longer. So, and I am someone who likes to, even the way I load the dishwasher, it has to be the way that I like to do it. So everything was a way that I had to do it. I really had to learn to go, you know what, I just need things done. Doesn't matter how it looks like, but I just need to delegate. So also just letting them be involved within the within that mental load, so that they can take things off you. Another thing is that I think when you become a mum, it's so important from your partner to hear really words of affirmation, really encouraging words to say, you know what, you're doing a great job, you're doing a wonderful job, just to reassure you and to let you know that there are really positive things that you might not be seeing that they're seeing. So whatever they're seeing that is a positive, make sure that they're communicating that with you as well. It's a really good reminder.
Yeah, because I think you highlight all of the things that have gone bad in the day.
Yes.
Everything
Yeah.
that went the wrong way is really obvious to you. But perhaps they can, bring a
Yeah.
different side, a different shade to the way you see things, which is really nice. And what about, obviously, this is something that not too many people talk about, but for a partner, postnatal mental health is
Yes.
also really quite important, and they can suffer from postnatal
Yeah.
blues in their own way, which is a hard thing for them to admit. So, how can you take us into the mind, I guess, an experience of a partner and perhaps what they may be going through as well alongside you?
Look, I think with a partner, the biggest thing that they will probably be going through is confusion. It's just, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be there. And not that they don't want to, they just simply don't know. For Sam and I, we had spoken about kids. We both knew we wanted kids. So when it happened, he was just confused as to why, he knew it would be difficult, but I don't think he anticipated that it would hit me this hard. So he was just so confused as to why are you feeling this way. So I think confusion is a big one. They will try to help in any way they can. Most partners, I think, will be trying to support him. For Sam, he was, if you need to go out, go out. If you want to sleep, you sleep. I'll look after the baby. I'll take over. You just get some rest. So I think they also want to be involved as much as they can to help. But I think that be so transparent with them, because they are so confused as to why you might be feeling this way. And I think it's just important for them to know that this might be a season you're going through. On top of feeling confused, they also want to understand how they can offer to help. So be very, very, once again, transparent. This is what I need help with, because they don't really know what they can do to help with that mental load. They don't really know what they can do to help maybe calm the emotions, that you're struggling with. So they probably, I would say, going through confusion, and also just not knowing what to do in terms of how to support their partner.
Yeah, I think being quite direct as well with like what you need, because they can't read your mind as much as we would like them
Which we expect sometimes, yes.
We do expect, like that's frustrating in itself.
Yes.
Like, why don't you know what to do?
Exactly.
So being as direct as you can is really important. I think another thing that Nick mentioned that he went through, which is, a few other partners have mentioned, is guilt. Yes. Because they, they go back to work and then they feel guilty that they go back to work, and they, not check out of being a parent, but they just get that slight normality back. Yes. So there's these feelings of guilt that they have to tackle, and they are quite challenged by. And so, they have their own wave of emotions that they're dealing with.
Yes.
So I think, as you said, open communication is key there. Mm-hmm. Talking through it, being honest with each other, doing the balancing game of, well, if you need a break, I need a break, and then, trying to kind of maneuver around that. So can you, Miram, of course, there are so many different resources out there to get help, whether it is professional, whether it is tips and tricks. What are some that really stand out for you and that are key resources that would be quite helpful to either people who are expecting a baby, haven't really entered that period yet, or they're perhaps in the thick of it?
Look, the most important one I would say is look after your physical health. So make sure that you are getting the, exercise wherever you can. And when I say exercise, I'm not talking about something, strenuous. I'm talking about going for a walk with the pram if you can, 10, 15 minutes a day. You're eating well, your sleep habits as best as you can, getting as much rest as you need. So really looking after your physical health is really a big one. Do not neglect that. Also, another one I would say is one of the most important is also to seek professional help and do your research before you go to speak to somebody. So make sure it is someone who has dealt with this situation before, someone who knows what they're talking about. And one thing that I've seen just with my own clients is when they come to talk to me, they'll say to me, Miram, look, we're talking things through, but there's no practical strategies on what to do or practical advice. So make sure, it is so important to vent and talk about it, but make sure that you're taking out of it, okay, actions, this is what I need to be doing. At the end of the session, this is what my goals are. Be very clear on what your goal is with your, psychologist or counselor or whoever you're seeing, and make sure that you are actively working towards them and that they're actually following up to make sure that you are working towards those things.
Yeah, finding somebody that you connect with is really important.
Yeah.
Same values, same vibe, you feel really comfortable with, because it's already a really intimidating situation, yes, especially the first time. I remember my first therapy session, it was so different to what you see in the movies. I was like, wow, yes, this is just a chat. I was thinking this like intimidating situation. There'd be like a chair facing another chair, and like it'd be really like moody in there. And it's so different. It's so different to that. So it's so casual and inviting and really just like a great experience. So I hope that people aren't scared of that and aren't confused and aren't ashamed to kind of put their hand up and seek that help.
No, absolutely not.
Miram, thank you so much for being so open. I think these are the conversations, of course, that we need to be having. in the midst of, you know, tips and tricks on sleep and feeding and this and that, this is right up there with in
Absolutely.
terms of importance. So if you want to keep up with Miram, you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as well. I will definitely link all of those profiles in our show notes today. Thank you so much for your
Thanks,
time.
Nicolina. Thank you.